Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
California's status as a safe haven for reproductive rights could be undermined tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It all depends on how the U.S. Supreme Court rules on access to a commonly used abortion drug. KPBS's Amita Sharma says the pending decision has women, doctors, and state officials on edge.
Earlier this month, a federal judge in Texas ruled that the FDA's approval of mifepristone, a drug used in half of all abortions in the United States, be suspended. The issue is now before the Supreme Court. The justices will decide whether access to the drug should stay as is, be somewhat restricted, or banned.
I want to be clear that what we're talking about now are motions or petitions to stay the FDA's current rules.
Former San Diego U.S. Attorney Carol Lam emphasized whichever stay the High Court upholds, its ruling is temporary.
They are not necessarily decisions on the merits of the case, although whether you grant a stay or you don't grant a stay could, in effect, be a decision on the merits for the time being.
Lamb believes the Supreme Court will likely choose the middle road by upholding a stay from the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal in Louisiana that came after the Texas ruling. That ruling preserves access to mifepristone with certain limits. It says only doctors, not nurse practitioners or physician's assistants, can prescribe mifepristone. And it rolls back use of the drug from the first 10 weeks of pregnancy to 7.
That is probably what the Supreme Court is going to rule on. They're going to say we either agree with the Fifth Circuit or we don't agree with the Fifth Circuit.
But if the justices side with the Texas judge, the High Court would be on a collision course with California.
For decades, mifepristone has been a safe and reliable lifeline for so many. Safer than Tylenol, safer than a colonoscopy, safer than having your wisdom tooth removed, safer than Viagra.
That's California Attorney General Rob Bonta seeking to reassure Californians earlier this week. Since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last year, the state has been a leader nationwide in defending abortion rights.
We are and will continue to be a safe haven for reproductive freedom. You can count on California.
But what does that really mean? Governor Gavin Newsom says he will not defy the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling if it upholds the Texas decision.
I believe in the rule of law. The other side often doesn't.
But California is pursuing actions on the policy front. That includes clarifying state laws that protect pharmacists and shielding people's private health information from federal law enforcement. As for legal strategy for challenging an adverse Supreme Court ruling, Newsom would only say,
don't think for a second we don't have more ideas. And please don't think for a second I'm going to say anything more about it. But we are a creative bunch.
Meanwhile, Northern California abortion care doctor Christine Henneberg says the stay on the use of mifepristone has created anxiety and uncertainty among healthcare providers and patients.
Fear and confusion. What can I do? What can I not do? Am I going to be criminally prosecuted? Am I going to lose my license? Is someone going to come after me for traveling out of state to obtain this medication? Where is it legal? Where is it not legal? Where is it available?
The Supreme Court's self-imposed deadline to rule is 11:59 p.m. tomorrow. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
First, the FDA and now the CDC have both given the green light for some adults to get the recommended updated COVID-19 booster shot. However, less than a fifth of eligible Americans have gotten theirs. Mandy Gaither breaks down the new guidance and what it means for you.
Across the U.S., COVID-19 cases, deaths, and hospitalizations continue to trend down, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
One of the reasons why things are so much better now than where they were a year or two ago is because almost everybody now has some level of protection.
Dr. Frank Esper with Cleveland Clinic says the protection is either through a prior infection or vaccines, but early data suggests protection has started to wane from the bivalent booster, which health experts say protects against the original strain of the COVID-19 virus, Omicron, and its spin-offs. That's why the FDA has updated its guidance for the most vulnerable to the disease, allowing people 65 and older to get an additional dose of the Pfizer or Moderna bivalent vaccines now, as long as it's been 4 months since their last one. And most people with certain degrees of immunocompromise can get a second dose of a bivalent vaccine at least 2 months after the last one.
What we're trying to do with our vaccination response is to make sure that everybody's antibody levels, remain protective, so that they can fight off the infection.
For immunocompromised children ages 6 months through 4 years, eligibility for an additional bivalent vaccine will depend on the vaccine previously received, so talk to a doctor. Another big change is that most unvaccinated people may now receive a single dose of a bivalent vaccine rather than multiple doses of the original single-strain vaccines. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The Metropolitan Transit System was supposed to pick a new leader after Nathan Fletcher's resignation, but the process hit a roadblock today. The board could not reach a 2/3 vote on any of the candidates. They are La Mesa Council Member Patricia Dillard, El Cajon Council Member Steve Goebel, and San Diego City Council Member Stephen Whitburn. Whitburn will remain acting chair of MTS until the board meets again on May 18th. And you'll remember Fletcher and MTS were named in a lawsuit filed by a former employee who accuses Fletcher of sexual assault and harassment. The board has appointed a firm to conduct an independent investigation into the allegations. It's April 20th, 4/20, and that might not mean anything special to you, but for millions of cannabis users, it's the unofficial day when marijuana is celebrated. In Chula Vista, a new pot shop described as upscale opened today, and KPBS reporter John Carroll went to check it out.
The name is undeniably catchy, Urban Joy, as in herb, H-E-R-B, the letter N, joy. The Chula Vista location is one of 4 Urban Joy stores in California. The feel inside is more like an Apple store than a pot shop. Jeff Linden is a co-owner.
Not having counters where people stand. We merchandise like department stores or specialty boutique stores. That's probably best exemplified by our domes on how we display our products so people can see them.
Chula Vista has gained a reputation as being difficult when it comes to licensing marijuana retail shops. A story in Voice of San Diego last August talked about alleged conflicts of interest and favoritism shown by the city to certain license applicants over others. I asked Linden about his experience.
Our experience was long
and competitive. Long story short, Linden says he and his co-owners were given a license, but then another operator appealed the decision and the city sided with them. But Linden says he then appealed that ruling.
And that took a while, but in the end, the city got it right.
As in, he and his fellow owners ended up getting the license. Linden says the entire process took a little more than 2 years, but they finally opened their doors late last week. On the lighter side of this story, and I have to admit I feel a little like Ken Kramer in an episode of About San Diego saying this, but this store is located on Nirvana Avenue.
It is icing on the cake. It is really pretty amazing to be able to say, and pretty fun to be able to say, we're on the corner of Main and Nirvana.
Nirvana. More than a street, you could say it's a state of mind for all who see 420 as its own kind of special day. John Carroll, KPBS News.
More money is coming to San Diego to help get families online. The San Diego Housing Commission will receive a $230,000 grant from the FCC. The announcement was made in the Colina del Sol neighborhood. The money will be spent on outreach and to help people apply for the Affordable Connectivity Program. One benefit is a $30 discount on monthly internet bills.
Which for many means that their internet connection is free. If you participate in any federal low-income program, including federal housing assistance, you are eligible for ACP.
The FCC commissioner says more than 400,000 San Diego households qualify. The program also helps pay for devices like tablets and laptops. Some 50 million people are under severe weather alerts today from Wisconsin to Texas. Laura Aguirre has a look at the damage already done and where the storm is headed now.
Lightning, hail, and tornadoes carved a lethal path across parts of the Panhandle State Wednesday.
Look at the winds flowing into the tornado. Oh, big power flash. It's hitting Cole right now.
The small town of Cole, with around 600 people, was hit head-on. Search, rescue, and recovery teams are at work Thursday. The storm blamed for at least 2 deaths there.
The tornado is getting stronger right back over here to the left. It's moving extremely slowly.
Large, damaging hail was reported in several areas, hitting one news chopper in flight.
I have no windshield. The helicopter's beat up. We are trying to make it to Paul's Valley and land.
That crew landed safely as the severe weather rolled east.
When it finally calmed all the way down, we came outside and yeah, my car is literally not where I left it.
Thought it wasn't too bad and then saw the whole roof on our backyard thing was gone, and I knew it was a lot worse.
Amid the devastation in Shawnee were several buildings on the campus of Oklahoma Baptist University, including some student apartment units and the school's chapel.
Buildings can be rebuilt. What I'm very happy to report is we have no reported injuries and no reported fatalities. And, you know, where I'm from, that's kind of hallelujah territory.
Forecasters are tracking the dangerous front through the Mississippi and Ohio valleys through Friday. I'm Laura Aguirre reporting.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, scientists warn that climate change is melting polar ice faster than expected. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A growing number of Americans are struggling to pay their car loans as both vehicle prices and average monthly payments are soaring to all-time highs. Shelley Malashi explains what consumers can do to get a better deal.
A 1-2 punch for people looking to buy a car. Prices are soaring and loan rates are the highest they've been in more than 15 years. According to new data from Edmunds.com, the average annual percentage rate, APR, on financing a new car jumped from 4.5% in March 2022 to 7% last month. Economists say those higher interest rates are due in part to the Fed taking action to tame high inflation.
That also is going to be very financially painful for a lot of households. So the financial pain and suffering that households are going through, that's not going to go away quickly.
Higher interest rates translate to higher monthly car payments. In March, the average monthly payment for financing a new car hit $730, the highest on record, according to Edmunds. It's not much better for financing a used car. That average monthly payment is now $556. That's up $147 from June 2020. And surprisingly, there is an increasing number of car owners paying even more than that. According to Edmunds data, about 17% of people with new car or truck loans are now spending $1,000 or more per month, a percentage that's roughly tripled in 4 years. So what can you do? 1, work on your credit score to raise your chances of getting a lower interest rate on your car loan. And 2, economists say if you can wait to buy, do it.
It's really important that you watch out for your debt. How much do you owe? Because if you lose your job or you get your hours cut back, your pay cut, then it's going to make it harder to service that debt, pay on that debt.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Shelley Malashi.
Fears of a recession continue amid rising interest rates and a looming debt ceiling battle in Washington. The latest jobless report shows unemployment claims rose by 5,000 to 245,000. Employers also added 236,000 jobs in March, down from 326,000 the previous month. A jump in layoffs for industries sensitive to interest rates could be a contributing factor. This as President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy continue to clash over how to deal with the nation's debt limit.
President Biden and Senator Schumer have no right to play politics with the debt calling. Their extreme positions risk provoking the very crisis they claim to to want to avoid.
It would mean cuts in Social Security and Medicare, higher interest rates for things like credit cards, car loans, mortgages.
The Congressional Budget Office says if the debt ceiling isn't raised, the federal government may default on the nation's debt as early as July. The latest round of tech layoffs means BuzzFeed News is shutting down. The CEO confirmed the move in a memo to staff today as part of a 15% reduction in BuzzFeed's workforce. The layoffs are happening across nearly every division and affect about 180 people. The CEO blames the pandemic, the tech recession, and a tough economy. The announcement comes just days after another round of layoffs from Facebook's parent company, Meta. Altogether, Meta is cutting some 66,000 jobs. A tsunami of pilot retirements. That is the stark warning one airline industry leader gave Congress. And she added that retirements will worsen the nation's already dire pilot shortage. Mike Valerio explains what this means for travelers.
Well, a warning that grew much stronger today. Estimates that up to 50% of commercial airline pilots could retire over the next 15 years. And why that matters, it could cut off smaller cities and American families of all sizes from the flights that we currently have. Bumpy skies ahead for America's airlines.
We're going off a cliff.
Testifying before a congressional subcommittee, airline industry leaders warn the ongoing pilot shortage will get worse in the years to come.
Within 15 years, nearly half of all pilots will retire.
The problem, an aging workforce is on the way out, and expensive training is keeping many recruits from getting in. The Regional Airline Association is calling on Congress to raise the mandatory retirement age from 65 to 67.
No data shows a pilot is unsafe at 65, but this arbitrary line forces qualified pilots to retire when they have much to offer.
Most airlines have yet to fully restore the service cuts they made during the pandemic, even in the face of record bookings at some carriers. That combination is driving airfares up over the last year, increasing by more than 17% according to the latest federal inflation data. And illustrating the shortage of pilots right now, just 8% of pilots who are in flight school who are in training are under the age of 30. In Los Angeles, I'm Mike Valerio. Back to you.
A lot of eyes will be on the Padres tonight as Fernando Tatis Jr. makes his long-awaited return. A short time ago, the team announced Tatis will hit leadoff tonight against the Arizona Diamondbacks. And this morning, he tweeted, "What a beautiful day," in Spanish. Injuries and an 80-game suspension for using a banned substance has kept him out of a regular season Padres game since 2021.
He couldn't be more excited about getting into the lineup. You know, it's almost like, you know, the reinforcements are coming. Joe's going to pitch this series too. So personnel-wise, we're going to have a much better team.
And another change for Tatis is his position. He's going to be the Padres' right fielder, and that's because shortstop Xander Bogaerts was added in the offseason. Tonight's game in Arizona starts at 6:40.
Starting with our weather headlines here, is we're going to see pretty quiet conditions, mostly clear and warmer weather is going to be our main weather headline. But then heads up when we look ahead past the weekend into early next week, we're going to have cooler, cloudier conditions making a comeback, but that's short-lived too. We are back to warmer conditions as we head into late next week. Looking at what we can expect for tonight's forecast, down to 48 in Oceanside, 54 for San Diego, Chula Vista down to 51, Mount Laguna drops down to 40, Borrego Springs, you stay into the upper 50s. And warm temperatures continue as we head into our day on Friday. High pressure still the main weather maker, so a nice way to wrap up the week. Temperatures under a sunny sky tomorrow in Oceanside go up to 77. San Diego, a high of 78 for you. Chula Vista into the upper 70s. Borrego Springs gets to the lower 90s, and Mount Laguna will see those temperatures into the lower 60s as we head into the day on Friday. And then still warm and dry conditions as we do start our weekend. So really nice weather to be outside as we wrap up the week and head into the day on Saturday. Things are looking good. Let's go through your 5-day outlook. We'll start along the coast here where temperatures will stay into the upper 70s for Friday, mid 70s on Saturday. And then, as I mentioned, some more clouds are going to feature some cooler temperatures as we wrap up the weekend and head into early next week. We'll see those temperatures into the mid to upper 60s Sunday into Tuesday. Looking inland as we'll keep those 80s around. Friday looks like the warmest of the next couple of days at 87. Saturday still pretty beautiful. Lots of sunshine, 84. And then we'll see some more cloud coverage as we head into early next week, and that means slightly cooler temperatures into those lower 70s for Monday and Tuesday. Heading into the mountains, where temperatures will hang out into the lower 60s for our Friday and our Saturday. Lots of sunshine, but don't let that fool you. It will be a bit cool out there. And then it does look like temperatures drop a bit as we head into early next week. Highs only into the lower 50s. And then into the deserts, 90s for the next couple of days, briefly into the 80s by Monday. For KPBS News, I'm Ariella Scalise. Lake Mead is getting a much-needed reprieve soon. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation plans to release more water into the lake. It expected to bring the water level up about 25 feet higher than it was at the end of last year. A massive snowpack in the mountains this winter is expected to help relieve drought in the Colorado River Basin once it starts melting. Lake Powell, another reservoir California relies heavily on for water, will rise by more than 50 feet. Still, officials warn it will take more than a year of higher than average snowpack to reverse the years-long drought. The animals of the world are facing a crisis because of climate change, pollution, and habitat loss. Scientists say 1 million species could face extinction in the coming decades. But in the mountains near Julian, there is instead a success story. KPBS reporter John Carroll takes us to the California Wolf Center, which is celebrating a significant achievement.
It is something of a miracle that the Mexican gray wolf is still around. By 1977, the government could only find 13 of them in New Mexico and Arizona. That's when the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service initiated a binational effort with Mexico to save them. It's also the year a UC San Diego biologist and his wife bought 50 acres of land here, a few miles outside of Julian. They also bought a couple of wolf puppies. The pack grew, and this land was eventually transformed into the California Wolf Center. In 1997, the Wolf Center joined the Mexican gray wolf species survival plan. And now, a little more than 25 years later, a remarkable milestone has been reached. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service says in 2022, for the first time, the number of Mexican gray wolves counted in the wild surpassed 200. 241 to be exact, and there may be more that were missed in the count. The California Wolf Center can take some credit for being an integral part of that population rebound. It's been expanding its conservation efforts over the years. Teresa Kozin is the center's executive director.
A huge milestone, a 23% increase from a year before. It's a population that we're thrilled to know that there's that much of a population increase.
The population increase would not have been possible without years of hard work.
For a long time, it was in question whether or not it was going to work.
Sierra McIsaac is the Wolf Center's Wolf Care Coordinator. Part of her job entails leading tours of this special place. Getting people to get involved in the conservation of the Mexican gray wolf and wolves in general first means helping folks to get to know all about them.
We are in our Ambassador Mexican gray wolf habitat. We have 3 Mexican gray wolves for guests to view.
None of the wolves here are socialized. These ambassador wolves see humans on a regular basis, but there are others that are kept away from the public. They only see caretakers like McIsaac. That's because the goal for the Mexican gray wolves here is to be released back into the wild, with one caveat.
In the United States, we can't do adult releases. We can only do the cross-fostering of puppies. But in Mexico, they do adult releases. So our guys still have the potential to go out into Mexico and help the Mexican wolf population in Mexico.
But for all the wolves here, what McIsaac calls enrichment is important for both their physical and mental health.
And so that could be a food item, a scent item, something that they can physically interact with. So we'll see if they enjoy something a little bit different, but I also, it's lemon and ginger tea. But we also have some mint leaves. I have some food enrichment if we decide that we don't want any scent enrichments.
A passing interest is about all the wolves showed to the scent enrichment, but the fish-infused ice cubes, they were a hit.
We love a good fish sickle.
McIsaac then took us to another enclosure, this one the home of some permanent residents, a couple of the museum's North American gray wolves. They're an endangered species as well, but further along in their recovery than their Mexican gray cousins.
So Poppy and Yana are mother and daughter.
Poppy and Yana's food enrichment was raw chicken wings, a favorite of this mother-daughter pair. Poppy and Yana's food enrichment was raw. A favorite of this mother-daughter.
Cattle, so it's got to be a win-win for everybody.
And, you know, wolves on their own totally figured out how to open the door because they're ravens. But sometimes they're so Poppy is...
Prompter? Can I prompt her? And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman talks with NPR's Morning Edition about putting his health first, which included stepping away to treat depression. And KPBS Roundtable has a discussion with the Union Tribune reporters involved with an in-depth project on mental illness in San Diego. And as always, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.